I was doing 70 on a two-lane road in the dark when my phone lit up again. The first message from my daughter-in-law, Sofia, had come in 11 minutes ago. Dad, please come. Birchwood Lane house. Marcus won't wake up. I tried calling her back 4 times. No answer. Just that message glowing on my screen while I white-knuckled the steering wheel through the back roads of Culpeper County, Virginia. Marcus is my grandson. He's 5 years old. When I pulled into the driveway of the old house on Birchwood Lane, Sofia's car was there. Engine still running, headlights cutting through the October fog. The front door was wide open. I found her in the kitchen, on the floor, holding Marcus against her chest. The boy was limp, eyes half closed, breathing shallow. Sofia's face was swollen on the left side, a bruise already darkening under her eye. Her lip was split. What happened? I dropped beside them, pressing my fingers to Marcus's neck. His pulse was there, but slow, too slow for a 5-year-old. She put something in his juice, Sofia whispered. Her accent, the soft lilt she'd carried from Guadalajara since she was 19, was barely there now. That's how I knew she was terrified. When Sofia lost her accent, she was beyond scared. Your daughter, Caroline. She gave him juice at dinner, and he started getting sleepy, and then he wouldn't wake up. Caroline did this? She hit me when I tried to take him to the hospital, said I was overreacting, said I was being dramatic like all my people are. Then she left, just walked out. I scooped Marcus into my arms. He weighed nothing, 42 pounds of nothing, and his head lolled against my shoulder like he was made of cloth. I could smell something sweet on his breath, something that didn't belong there. We're going to the hospital right now, I said. Get in my truck. Leave your car. Sofia grabbed her purse and Marcus's backpack and we were moving. I drove to Culpeper Medical Center in 9 minutes. Should have taken 15. I carried Marcus through the emergency room doors, and the triage nurse took one look at that limp little body, and everything accelerated. They had him on a gurney in 30 seconds, an IV in his arm in 2 minutes, a doctor shining a light in his eyes in 3, diphenhydramine. That's what they found in his blood. Benadryl, enough to knock out a grown man, poured into a 5-year-old's apple juice. The doctor, a young woman named Patel, looked at me with careful eyes and said the words no grandfather ever wants to hear. If you'd gotten here 30 minutes later, we might be having a very different conversation. Marcus was going to be okay. They pumped fluids into him, monitored his heart rate, kept him overnight. By midnight, his color was coming back. By 2 in the morning, he opened his eyes and said, "Grandpa, my tummy hurts." I held his hand and told him everything was going to be fine. Then I stepped into the hallway and called the Culpeper County Sheriff's Department. While Sofia stayed with Marcus, I sat in the waiting room and did something I'd been avoiding for 3 years. I started connecting dots. My son, Kevin, married Sofia Reyes when they were both 26. Kevin was an electrical engineer. Sofia was finishing her nursing degree. They'd met at a friend's barbecue in Richmond, and from the moment Kevin brought her home for Thanksgiving, I knew she was the one. Smart, warm, funny. She made my son better. She made our whole family better. But my daughter, Caroline, Kevin's older sister, did not agree. Caroline had married well. Her husband, Richard Davenport, came from old Virginia money. His family had been in the Shenandoah Valley since before the Civil War, and they never let anyone forget it. Richard's mother, Eleanor, was the kind of woman who kept a framed family tree in the foyer and introduced herself at parties by listing which of her ancestors had been officers in the Confederate Army. When Richard married Caroline, my daughter absorbed that world like a sponge. Within 5 years, Caroline talked differently, dressed differently, thought differently. She started using phrases like our kind of people and traditional values in ways that made my stomach turn. When Kevin announced his engagement to Sofia, Caroline's reaction was a tight smile and a private conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. I'd gone to the kitchen for coffee during the engagement party at Caroline's house, and through the cracked door of the study, I heard my daughter say to Richard, "This is a disaster. A Mexican girl? Mom would be rolling in her grave." My wife, Barbara, had been dead for 6 years by then, and Barbara would have loved Sofia. I knew that in my bones, but I didn't confront Caroline that night. I told myself it was just surprise, that she'd come around. That was my first mistake. Over the next 3 years, Caroline didn't come around. She got worse, but she was smart about it. Never said anything overtly racist in front of Kevin. Instead, she worked on Sofia directly. Little comments at family dinners. "Oh, Sophia, is that how they season food where you're from?" Backhanded compliments about how surprisingly articulate Sophia was. Questions about whether Marcus would look more like our side or hers. Sophia told me about these things in quiet moments, always downplaying them. "It's okay, Dad. I can handle Caroline." She'd been calling me Dad since the wedding, and every time she said it, I felt proud. This woman trusted me. She considered me family, but I should have done more. Should have confronted Caroline years ago. Instead, I watched from a distance while my daughter slowly poisoned the family, just not with Benadryl. Not yet. Everything collapsed 6 months ago when Kevin died. My son was driving home from a job site in Charlottesville when a delivery truck ran a red light. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. 34 years old, my boy, gone. The grief nearly killed me. I'm 63, I've buried my wife, and now my son. But Sophia and Marcus needed me, so I held myself together. I helped Sophia with the funeral arrangements, the insurance paperwork, the mortgage. Kevin had a life insurance policy worth $800,000. A good policy, enough to take care of Sophia and Marcus for years. That's when Caroline made her move. 2 weeks after the funeral, Caroline filed a petition in Culpeper County Family Court seeking emergency guardianship of Marcus. The filing claimed that Sophia was an unfit mother with unstable immigration status and a history of emotional volatility. It alleged that Sophia had cultural practices incompatible with the child's American upbringing, and that Marcus would be better served by placement with his maternal aunt in a stable, established household. Every word of it was a lie. Sophia was a U.S. citizen, had been since she was 22. She'd passed her nursing boards on the first try, worked at Culpeper Medical Center for 7 years, never had so much as a parking ticket. But Caroline had money and connections. Richard's family knew the judge. Richard's law firm handled the paperwork. They filed on a Friday afternoon, hoping to get a temporary order before Sophia even knew what was happening. But a clerk at the courthouse happened to be a friend of Sophia's from the hospital. She called Sophia that night. That's how we found out. I hired a lawyer the next morning, Helen Park, a family law attorney out of Fairfax who'd built her reputation taking down exactly this kind of case. She reviewed the filing and told me, "This is one of the most transparently racist custody grabs I've seen in 20 years. We're going to bury them. But I need you to get me everything, every text, every email, every interaction." So I started digging. Kevin and Caroline had shared a family cloud storage account since college. Kevin had never removed Caroline's access, and she'd never bothered to change the shared password. I logged in from my laptop and found a folder labeled Family Planning that had nothing to do with babies. It was Caroline's war room. Hundreds of documents. Emails between Caroline and Richard's mother, Eleanor, going back 4 years. The oldest one, sent a week after Kevin and Sophia's wedding, read like a battle plan. "Eleanor, I share your concerns about this marriage. The girl is pleasant enough, but she is not our kind. We need to think long term. If they have children, the damage to our family's legacy will be permanent. I suggest we begin documenting her unsuitability now, so that when the time comes, we'll have a case." Eleanor's response was worse. "Agreed, Caroline. I've spoken with my attorney. There are ways to build a pattern. Every incident, every disagreement, every cultural difference should be recorded. If the marriage fails on its own, wonderful. If not, we may need to intervene." They'd been building a file on Sophia for 4 years. Every argument Kevin and Sophia had, Caroline somehow knew about it and documented it. Every time Sophia spoke Spanish to Marcus on the phone, Caroline logged it as evidence of cultural alienation. When Sophia took Marcus to a Dia de los Muertos celebration at the community center, Caroline photographed them and wrote a memo claiming Sophia was exposing the child to occult practices. I felt sick reading it. But then I found the emails from after Kevin's death, and sick turned to fury. 3 days after my son was buried, Caroline wrote to Eleanor, "The timing is unfortunate, but the opportunity is ideal. With Kevin gone, there's no one to protect her legally. If we move fast, we can have Marcus placed with me within 60 days. I've already spoken with Judge Whitmore's clerk. Richard says the firm can expedite the paperwork. The insurance money should be redirected to a trust we control. For Marcus's benefit, of course. They weren't just trying to take my grandson. They were trying to steal his inheritance. But the email that made me put my fist through the drywall in my garage was dated 2 weeks ago. Eleanor, the girl is becoming a problem. She's hired a lawyer somehow, and the temporary order was denied. We need a different approach. If we can demonstrate that she's neglectful or unstable, we can file again with stronger grounds. I've been thinking about what you said at lunch. If the child were to have a medical episode while in my care, and Sofia's response seemed delayed or inappropriate, that would certainly raise questions about her fitness. I need to be careful, but I think I know how to handle this. A medical episode. My daughter had planned to drug her own nephew to frame his mother as negligent, and tonight she'd done it. I took screenshots of every document, downloaded the entire folder onto a flash drive. Then, I called Helen Park at 3 in the morning. She answered on the second ring. Family lawyers, I've learned, are used to emergencies. This changes everything, Helen said after I read her the key emails. This isn't just a custody dispute anymore. This is attempted murder of a child and conspiracy. I'm calling the Commonwealth's attorney first thing in the morning. Don't delete anything. Don't tell Caroline you have this. Then I called my brother, Paul. Paul is 61, retired Marine, lives in Fredericksburg. He'd been at Kevin's funeral, had seen how Caroline behaved, how she'd barely acknowledged Sofia, how she'd whispered to Richard's family in the corner like they were planning a campaign. Paul had pulled me aside that day and said, "Something's wrong with your daughter, Frank. I don't know what it is, but watch her." I should have listened harder. "I'll be there by dawn," Paul said when I finished telling him what happened. "And Frank, I know a guy at the Richmond Times-Dispatch, investigative reporter, covered that foster care scandal in Henrico County last year. He'd want to hear about this." "Not yet," I said. "Let the law work first, but keep that number ready." The Culpeper County Sheriff's Department took Sofia's statement at the hospital that morning. Deputy Williams, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, looked at the bruise on Sofia's face, looked at Marcus hooked up to monitors, and said, "I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." Sofia told her about the dinner at Caroline's house, how Caroline had invited them over, said she wanted to make peace, wanted to start over for Marcus's sake. How Caroline had poured Marcus a glass of apple juice from a special bottle she said was organic, from a farm in Orange County. How Marcus had started getting drowsy within 20 minutes. How Sofia had tried to pick him up to leave, and Caroline had blocked the door, told her she was being hysterical, that the boy was just tired. How, when Sofia pushed past her, Caroline had hit her across the face. How Sofia had grabbed Marcus and driven straight to Birchwood Lane, the old house where Kevin and I had done renovations together, because it was closer than driving all the way back to her place in town. How she'd texted me because she couldn't dial 911 with shaking hands and a screaming child. Deputy Williams arrested Caroline Davenport at her home in Rapidan at 10:30 that morning. Richard answered the door in his bathrobe, coffee in hand. And when the deputies walked past him to put handcuffs on his wife, he said, "This is a misunderstanding. My wife would never harm a child." The toxicology report said otherwise. Caroline was charged with felony child abuse, assault and battery, and administering poison with intent to harm. Bail was set at $200,000. Richard paid it within hours. Caroline walked out of the Culpeper County Jail at 4 in the afternoon, looking annoyed rather than remorseful, and that's when I decided the law alone wasn't going to be enough. I called Paul. "Give me that reporter's number." Paul's contact was named David Chen, a senior investigative journalist at the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I met him at a diner in Culpeper the next day, laid out everything: the emails, the custody filing, the poisoning, the 4-year campaign to separate a mother from her child because of her Mexican heritage. David listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he closed his notebook and said, "Mr. Rossi, I've covered a lot of ugly stories. This is one of the ugliest. I want to run it, but I need to verify everything independently. Give me 48 hours. David didn't need 48 hours. He needed 36. He pulled court records, interviewed the hospital staff with Sofia's permission, talked to 3 of Sofia's co-workers who confirmed they'd witnessed Caroline making derogatory comments at a hospital charity event. He even found a former housekeeper of the Davenport family who'd been fired after refusing to spy on Sofia. The woman, a 60-year-old Salvadoran immigrant named Rosa Gutierrez, told David that Eleanor Davenport had once said to her face, "You people should be grateful we let you clean our homes." The story ran on a Sunday morning. Front page, above the fold. Prominent Shenandoah Valley family, accused of poisoning grandson to seize custody from Mexican-American mother. David had written it meticulously, every claim sourced, every email quoted with context. He'd even obtained a statement from the Culpeper County Commonwealth's attorney confirming the criminal investigation. By Monday afternoon, it was national news. CNN picked it up. The Washington Post ran their own follow-up. A clip of Caroline leaving the courthouse went viral on social media, millions of views within hours. People were furious. The comment sections were full of families sharing their own stories about in-laws who'd tried to erase their heritage, about grandparents denied access to grandchildren because of the color of their skin. Richard's law firm, Davenport and Associates, started hemorrhaging clients. 3 major accounts pulled out in the first week. The Virginia State Bar opened an ethics investigation into whether the firm had knowingly facilitated a fraudulent custody filing. Richard's partners called an emergency meeting and voted to remove his name from the firm. Within a month, Davenport and Associates became Mitchell, Gregg, and Howe. Richard was pushed into early retirement. Eleanor Davenport, the matriarch who'd orchestrated so much of this poison from behind the scenes, made the mistake of giving a statement to a local TV reporter outside her church. She said, "This family has been in Virginia for 9 generations. We have standards. If wanting to preserve our heritage makes us villains, then this country has lost its way." That clip went more viral than anything else. 9 generations of Virginia heritage, and she'd used it to justify poisoning a 5-year-old. The internet did not forgive her. Helen Park, meanwhile, was building our civil case into a fortress. She'd subpoenaed the Davenport family's financial records and found something extraordinary. Richard had been funneling money from a family trust, money that was supposed to go toward Marcus's education per Kevin's will, into a separate account controlled by Caroline. Over $120,000 in 6 months, redirected without Sofia's knowledge or consent. That was straight-up fraud, on top of everything else. Helen also found that Judge Whitmore, the family court judge Richard had tried to use for the emergency guardianship, had received campaign contributions from the Davenport family totaling $40,000 over the past decade. She filed a judicial ethics complaint. Judge Whitmore recused himself from all Davenport-related cases within the week and quietly announced his retirement 3 months later. The criminal trial came first. Caroline's defense attorney, a high-priced guy from Richmond named Ashford, tried every trick. He argued the Benadryl was an accident, that Caroline had given Marcus an adult dose by mistake. He argued that Sofia had exaggerated the assault, that the bruise could have come from anywhere. He even tried to introduce character witnesses who would testify that Caroline was a loving aunt. The prosecution, led by Commonwealth's attorney Janet Rodriguez, dismantled every argument. She showed the jury the emails, all of them, 4 years of documented hatred projected on a courtroom screen while Caroline sat in her designer suit and watched her own words destroy her. The email about causing a medical episode. The email calling Marcus a half-breed anchor tying Kevin to that woman. The email where Eleanor suggested that if they couldn't get custody legally, they should make the mother's life so unbearable she leaves on her own. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found Caroline guilty on all counts: felony child abuse resulting in hospitalization, assault and battery, administering poison, and conspiracy to commit fraud. At sentencing, Judge Angela Freeman, a black woman from Richmond who'd replaced Whitmore on the case, looked at Caroline and said something I'll never forget. "Mrs. Davenport, you had every advantage this society offers: wealth, education, family, community. And you used all of it to try to destroy a 5-year-old boy and his mother because of where his mother was born. That is not tradition. That is not heritage. That is cruelty dressed up in a family crest." Caroline got 18 years, no parole for 12. Eleanor Davenport was charged separately as a co-conspirator. She was 81 years old, and her attorney argued for leniency due to her age. The judge gave her 6 years. She lasted 14 months before dying in the medical wing of Fluvanna Correctional Center. The obituary in the Culpeper Star-Exponent was 4 lines long. No one submitted a longer version. Richard Davenport was charged with fraud and conspiracy for his role in diverting Marcus's trust funds and facilitating the fraudulent custody filing. He pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, got 5 years. His partners at the former firm issued a public statement distancing themselves from him. The Davenport family home in Rapidan, a sprawling estate that had been in the family for, yes, 9 generations, was seized as part of the restitution order. The civil case was settled out of court. Helen Park had built such an overwhelming case that the Davenport family's remaining attorneys recommended settling rather than facing a jury again. Sofia received $4.2 million in damages and the entirety of Marcus's redirected trust fund, plus an additional settlement from the Davenport Family Trust. The total came to just under $6 million. But here's what I want you to understand. The money didn't fix anything. It helped, absolutely. Sofia paid off her mortgage, set up a proper college fund for Marcus, donated $100,000 to the Culpeper County Legal Aid Society so that other families who couldn't afford a Helen Park could still fight back. But the money didn't erase the fact that my daughter tried to kill my grandson. That's the part no one talks about in revenge stories. The revenge worked. Justice was served. The bad people went to prison. But I still lost my daughter. Not to death, but to something worse. I lost her to hate. I lost her the day she decided that her nephew's blood wasn't pure enough, and nothing, no verdict, no settlement, no newspaper headline, can undo that. I visit Caroline in prison sometimes, not often, maybe twice a year. She doesn't apologize. She still believes she was protecting the family. Last time I went, she looked at me through the plexiglass and said, "You chose her over me, Dad. You chose a stranger over your own blood." I said, "Sofia isn't a stranger. She's my son's wife. Marcus is my grandson. They are my blood." Caroline shook her head. "Not the same kind." I got up and left. Haven't been back since. That was 8 months ago. It's June now, and I'm sitting on the back porch of the house I built for Sofia and Marcus. It's a modest place on 3 acres outside Culpeper, close enough to town that Sofia can get to the hospital for her shifts, far enough out that Marcus has room to run. I built it from the ground up, same as I've built houses for 40 years. Cedar siding, stone fireplace, a wraparound porch because Sofia said she wanted to watch the Blue Ridge Mountains turn purple in the evening. I put extra insulation in Marcus's room because that boy kicks off his blankets every single night. Paul lives 20 minutes away. He comes over every Sunday for dinner. Sofia cooks enchiladas that would make you weep. And Paul, the tough old Marine, goes back for thirds every time and pretends he's not crying from the habanero salsa. Marcus is 6 now. He started first grade in September. His teacher, Mrs. Whitfield, told Sofia at the parent-teacher conference that Marcus is the kindest kid in the class, that he shared his lunch with a new student from Guatemala who didn't speak much English yet, sat with him at recess, taught him how to play foursquare. When Sofia told me that story, I sat in my truck in the driveway and cried for 20 minutes. That's my grandson. That's what Caroline tried to erase from this world. A boy who shares his lunch with strangers. Sofia went back to school last year, started a nurse practitioner program at UVA. She drives to Charlottesville 3 days a week, and on those days, I pick Marcus up from school. We have a routine. I get him at 3:15. We stop at the gas station for a grape soda, which Sofia doesn't know about, and neither of you better tell her. And then we go to my workshop. Marcus sits on a stool and watches me build things. Sometimes he helps. Last week I was making a bookshelf for his room and he handed me every single screw, one at a time, very serious, like a surgical nurse, handing tools to a doctor. When we finished, he ran his hand along the shelf and said, "Grandpa, do you think Mom will like it? She's going to love it, buddy." "Good. I want to put my Spanish books on it. The ones Abuela sent." Abuela. That's Sofia's mother, Lucia, who lives in Guadalajara. She visits twice a year and video calls every Sunday. Marcus speaks to her in Spanish, and his accent, Sofia tells me, is perfect. He's growing up bilingual, the way Sofia always wanted, the way Kevin always supported, the way Caroline tried to prevent. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Sofia hadn't texted me that night, if she'd waited 30 more minutes, if the Benadryl had done what Caroline hoped it would do. I think about the world without Marcus in it, and I can't breathe. I literally cannot draw air into my lungs. So let me say this clearly, because I need someone to hear it. If someone in your family is poisoning the people around you, whether it's with words or with something far worse, do not wait. Do not tell yourself, it will get better. Do not assume love will fix hatred on its own. It won't. Hatred is patient. It builds, it plans, it waits for the moment when you're grieving, when you're vulnerable, when you're looking the other way. And then, it strikes. I looked the other way for 3 years while my daughter turned into someone I didn't recognize. I heard the comments and told myself they were harmless. I saw the coldness toward Sophia and told myself Caroline would warm up. I lost 3 years I could have spent protecting my family because I wanted to believe my own daughter wasn't capable of this. She was. And she did it. The only thing that saved Marcus was Sophia's courage and a 9-minute drive to the emergency room. That's how thin the line was between my grandson growing up healthy and my grandson not growing up at all. So speak up, act. Protect the people who need protecting, even if the person you're protecting them from shares your last name. Especially then. Because family isn't a shield for cruelty. Family is a responsibility. And when someone in your family uses that bond as a weapon, you take the weapon away. You don't negotiate. You don't wait. You act. Marcus drew me a picture last week, crayon on construction paper, the way 6-year-olds do. It showed 3 people standing in front of a house with a big porch. A tall one with gray hair, that's me. A medium one with brown hair, that's Sophia. And a small one holding both their hands, that's him. Above the house, in wobbly letters, he wrote, Mag Familia. My family, our family, the family Caroline tried to destroy and couldn't. I framed that picture. It's hanging on my workshop wall right now, next to the photo of Kevin and Sophia on their wedding day and the ultrasound image of Marcus from when he was still just a promise. 3 generations of love, documented in crayon and photographs, stronger than 9 generations of hate ever could be. That's my story. That's my revenge. Not the trial, not the settlement, not watching my daughter led away in handcuffs, though I won't pretend that didn't feel like something. The real revenge is Marcus's laugh echoing off the Blue Ridge Mountains on a Sunday evening. The real revenge is Sophia's voice carrying through the kitchen window, singing a song her mother taught her, while Marcus tries to sing along in Spanish and gets half the words wrong and doesn't care. The real revenge is that we're still here. Still building. Still loving. And the people who tried to stop us are behind walls they can't climb over, in silence they can't fill, with a legacy that amounts to nothing but a cautionary tale. The Davenport name, the 9 generations Eleanor was so proud of, ends in a prison cell and a 4-line obituary. But the name Rossi Reyes, the name on Marcus's school papers and Sophia's hospital badge and the mailbox of the house I built with my own hands, that name is just getting started. And you know what? That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.